Thank you for joining us today. We can take a seat before we start our event today. Thank you.
Welcome to Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center in Yishun Central, strategically located near Khoo Teck Puat Hospital, North Point City and Yishun MRT. The center is easily accessible by foot and public transport. Beyond the back door of the center is Yishun Pond Park, a peaceful public space surrounded by greeneries and a variety of flora, fauna, and a nice jogging track with trees on both sides of the path. With a land area of 48,000 square feet, the new center serves as a community recreation hub, hoping to inspire and connect youths. The entrance is a wide doorless front with wooden panels on both sides of the walkway. Tastefully crafted mainly with wood and glass, this open entrance concept is designed to invite the public to walk in with ease. The narrowing entrance leads the visitors to the hot spot, specially created as a comfortable resting and waiting area. The common reading area is equipped with whiteboards, power supply, The partners here work together to a charitable platform for youths to carry out activities that promote eco-living, sustainable development, and healthy lifestyle. Circular Asia is here with an aim to achieve sustainability by optimizing the value of our resources for the ecosystems. OMG Makerspace is a creative design studio that strives to foster a community of IT-savvy youth, encouraging them to learn and develop digital technical skills by running related workshops and programs. Three Pumpkins provides a platform to restore and build positive relationships in an increasingly anxious and disconnected world. Boomi, a boutique lifestyle Pilates studio, promises comprehensive offerings for a true wellness experience. Behind these pivot doors is a multi-purpose hall that can accommodate up to 500 people. The hall is equipped with a sound system control room, lighting, and soundproof system, and it is open for booking. Our co-working space offers flexibility for companies and individuals to customize their work area to suit their needs. A pantry is also thoughtfully included in the co-lab to make it convenient for users to grab some refreshments during break time. Designed with pivot doors and equipped with removable tables and chairs, if you need a space for seminars, tuition classes, discussions, and meetings, you may consider renting our power stations. Apart from activity spaces, there is a plant-based restaurant and a book cafe at the center. Serving food that are only made with real ingredients, Real Food was established with a simple belief in sharing good and healthy natural food. Fancy a cup of tea? Take a leisure step into Jingsi Books and Cafe and be greeted by a space filled with inviting warmth and neat rows of inspiring and informative books. We hope Humanistic Youth Center can be a platform where young people realize wholesome values, get connected with one another and the society, and contribute towards a sustainable community. Come to the HYC today to socialize, engage in meaningful activities, relax, and have fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in today's Youth Wellness Launch. My name is Shirley, and I will be your host for the event. Mental wellness is something that is relevant to all of us, yet it is rarely talked about. That is why in 2021, Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center wants to prioritize youth mental wellness. Our event this afternoon will begin with an agreement signing between Silver Ribbon Singapore and Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore. Silver Ribbon Singapore was set up in 2006 and was launched by our late president, S.R. Nathan. Their aim is to educate the public on positive mental health and encourage early help-seeking attitude. Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore is a registered charity that promotes organized charitable activities, medical services, humanistic education, and culture to meet the local society's needs and demands. Among others, this agreement kickstarts counseling and consultation services for Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore and Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center. Thereafter, our partner Happiness Initiative will be joining us with a talk entitled Signs of Happiness. The talk addresses the concept of happiness and why it seems so fleeting at times. After the talk, we will have a panel discussion on the importance of mental health literacy. Our panelists come from varying backgrounds, ranging from a youth who has experienced mental health challenges to mental health professionals. I would now like to invite our guest of honor, Nee Soon Grassroots Advisor, Mr. Derek Goh, CEO of Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore, Mr. Loh Swee Say, and the President of Silver Ribbon Singapore, Ms. Ellen Lee, up on stage to commence the MOU signing ceremony. With this agreement, Silver Ribbon Singapore will be providing counseling services, consultation, and training for Tzu-Chi staff, volunteers, and beneficiaries within the community. Starting on 23rd February 2021, the free counseling sessions will begin at Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center. If you or someone you know may be interested in attending counseling sessions, either face-to-face, over the phone, or over video conferencing, please feel free to get in touch with us. Now, we would like to invite Mr. Loh Swee Say to say a few words. Mr. Loh, please.
尊敬的主宾 ，Let it go and be your 李顺林 ，Silver Ribbon 的主席李义莹律师，还有前主席李清医生，各位贵宾，各位师兄师姐，下午好。新加坡的生活节奏非常的快，我们身处在21世纪，社会变化之激烈，远远超过我们的父辈还有先祖们，而战争、天灾、瘟疫等等挑战并没有远离。如何在无常中安顿自己的心灵，成为我们一生的学习，每天的功课。在不同的人生阶段，我们面临事业、职场、婚姻、家庭、疾病等等的考验。新冠疫情引发的未知，进一步加剧了我们的生存的压力。正面的看待心理问题，实时的自我察觉，及时的向外救援，是当下需要补给的重要观念。Silver Ribbon 在这个领域里面深耕了15年，积极的提倡民众的心理健康意识，定期的组织心理健康活动，并和学校、企业、民间团体、基层组织等等合作，向不同社会的阶层 伸延触角，提供更早介入专业服务和持续的追踪。净化人心是慈济的3大愿景之一。27年来，我们通过有形的事业推动，比如长期的济助弱势家庭，提供优质的中西医服务，成立幼教中心和青年中心，推动环保教育等等，在新加坡撒播了大爱的种子，让很多人从中提升生命的价值，进而翻转人生。我们非常荣幸的能与希望人们展开合作，协助让社会援助网撒得更广，恳切的希望我们也能扮演着推销人的角色，让有需要的人及时找到依靠，共同守护一孙社区居民的身心健康。最后，我也想借此机会，诚挚的祝愿 Silver Ribbon 15周年快乐，同时也感恩所有不懈努力、核心成就此项目的幕后团队，恭祝大家新年快乐，阖家安康，感恩。
Thank you, Mr. Low. We would now like to invite Ms. Ellen Lee to say a few words.
Right. Good afternoon. Minister Grassroots Advisor, Mr. Derek Goh. Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore CEO, Mr. Low Swee Say. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us at this meaningful event. I would like to begin by sharing a quote with everyone extracted from Jing Si Yu, written by Master Zhen Fa Shi. We are connected like one big family. Therefore, love each other during peaceful times and help each other when calamities strike. 正言法师说：“天下一家亲，平安时要互爱，灾难来临时要互助。” It is important for us to set aside our differences and support the needy, especially during this challenging period where infected cases, deaths, and lockdowns are being announced across the world. The second Singapore mental health study reported that 1 in 7 Singaporeans have experienced a mental health condition in their lifetime. And our online survey revealed that 1 in 4 experienced low mood, loneliness, and anxiety, much more than usual during the COVID-19 pandemic. As we have learned much about the remarkable contribution made by Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore, the team and the volunteers in sowing seeds of love and kindness and supporting the community, we feel very honored to launch this service in partnership with Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore to serve the residents with mental health issues and their caregivers in 2 ways. 1, equipping them with basic knowledge on mental health and management of stress, mental disorders, and their mental well-being. And 2, referring them to relevant agencies according to their needs. According to our record, our first meeting with Tzu-Chi team was held on 10th October 2019, and the event was postponed due to COVID-19. Due to stigma, not many people are willing to discuss about mental health issues. Hence, we have decided to name this service as Si Yu Xuan, with Master Zhen Yan's Jing Si Yu in mind, hoping to provide safe and comfortable space for those with personal struggles to come forward. Our trained professionals will do their best to assist them. This service is free of charge and open to everyone. And all the given details and discussions will be kept private and confidential. We protect their privacy. We are thankful to Nee-Soon Grassroots Advisor, Mr. Derek Goh, for gracing this meaningful event, and Shu Hui and HYC team, Ce Wei, Chun Chun, Claire, Jie Ming, Li Qian from Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore for working closely with our team and arranging for this event. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I pronounce your names wrongly. Together, we can build a mentally friendly and healthy environment for the community. Thank you very much. And before I end, I would like to wish everyone a happy Chinese New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. We would now like to invite Mr. Derek Goh to say a few words.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Mr. Loh Sui Se, CEO of Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore, Ms. Ellen Lee, President of Silver Ribbon Singapore, former Member of Parliament for Sembawang GRC, and also my Sijie. Great to see all of you. Welcome to the media and friends online and residents from Nee-Soon. And ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm happy to be here today to witness the signing of the MOU between Tzu-Chi Foundation Singapore as well as the Singapore Ribbon, Silver Ribbon. Since last year, all of us have placed a lot of importance on dealing with physical health due to COVID-19. And we have been stepping up our attention and paying a lot of attention in terms of physical health and slowly focusing a lot more on mental health as well. While the attention on mental wellness is being increased, the thing is here that, as many people have spoken earlier, that there is still a gap in terms of its understanding and also acceptance actually amongst our community. It is still not enough. Our Prime Minister recently spoke on this topic in October of 2020 at the World Health Organization's event on mental health. And just last week, MOE had announced the inclusion of mental health education, the inclusion in the secondary school curriculum. Now, mental wellness is an important part of well-being, and it's recognized in our youth that we are also challenged and by stress and uncertainty that is being added on by the pandemic. So, given this current situation, many of our youths have fewer physical interactions actually amongst themselves, and we know that they always interact a lot more between their best friends than with their parents actually, right? And also, therefore, that means there's less opportunities to talk to each other, fewer physical interactions, and these come across as challenges in their lives, right? And also what's happening is that this increasing digital age, social media, and the rise of e-games and e-sports, right, will have impact on the perceptions by our youth actually about themselves and lead to sometimes compulsive disorders as well. I know this well because I'm from Gen X. I do play internet games. And I play them with my younger kids as well. They are 15 and 10, both very young. And I do this because I try to manage their attitudes towards internet gaming. And I can tell you that it's not easy. And so a good way to deal with this is through better awareness, actually. And when we become more aware of ourselves, then there is this increased perception of what we are doing, and therefore of people around us as well. And therefore our youth also can become more aware of themselves and their friends around them. So with this, we will be able to recognize, hopefully, the issues early, and therefore to seek help themselves or to help their friends. So I'm delighted to know that the partnership between Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center, which operates right in the heart of Nee has decided to focus on mental health as one of the pillars of this year's activities. And of course, along with Silver Ribbon, a nonprofit organization that focuses on combating mental health with the philosophy that early intervention is the best way forward. So Silver Ribbon in this initiative will be supporting Tzu-Chi in terms of offering free weekly counseling sessions, as well as a series of talks and workshops for youth and residents of Nee. I think through this, there will be more interactions and they'll create a lot more awareness. And of course, we will start this afternoon. There'll be a panel of discussion where panelists representing the youth, caregivers, as well as the professional educators will share openly their own personal life experiences about their journey to create awareness about mental wellness and to encourage early help and intervention. So we want all youths and all those who need support to know that they are not alone in their journey. And there is help available in this community in Nee. And we want the adults around our youth also to understand this topic better so that together we can build a better Nee. So this MOU will go a long way in supporting the education of our residents on mental wellness. So thank you to Tzu-Chi Foundation and to Silver Ribbon as well. I'm sure this will be a very, very fruitful collaboration. So let me now say a few words in Mandarin. 当前冠病流行，大家很担心，压力很大。我们关心大家身体健康，同时也很重视大家的心理健康。慈济人文青年中心过去几年在义顺举办了很多有意义的活动。我很高兴，他们今年的一个重点是关怀年轻人心理的健康。同时，饮食代组织一直致力于推动心理健康，他们将支持慈济提供免费心理辅导和举办许多讲座和工作坊。我相信青年朋友和义顺居民都会很期待慈济和饮食代的合作，为义顺带来更多有意义的活动。那么最后，我也想祝大家新年快乐，心身健康，万事如意。谢谢你们。
Thank you, Mr. Go. We may now commence the signing of the agreement. Now, may we invite Mr. Low, Ms. Lee, and Mr. Go to stand for a photograph to commemorate this joyous occasion. Thank you, Mr. Low, Ms. Lee, and Mr. Go. You may now return back to your seats. We would now like to pass the time over to our friends at Happiness Initiative as they teach us about what happiness is. To our esteemed guests in the hall, we would like to invite you for some refreshments as the Science of Happiness talk is being broadcasted on the screen. Please help yourselves to the snacks and drinks at the back.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome to this segment on understanding happiness, brought to you from Happiness Initiative in partnership with Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center. My name is Simon. I'm actually at this very beautiful place at this Humanistic Youth Center here in one of the offices here, and we do welcome you to visit us at this Humanistic Youth Center. It's a very beautiful place by the pond here. While we are waiting, perhaps for some of our participants to join in, right? There is an activity there that is on the bottom right of the slide. There is a QR code. This is an anonymous activity. It'd be fun. In order for us to understand happiness, perhaps you may want to try this activity so that you can get a first-hand experience. What exactly is happiness? We are very honored today to partner Tzu-Chi HYC to launch this mental health to do this mental health launch. And what is mental health? We can look at mental health from two perspectives. One of it is looking at mental health from a pathology perspective, looking at what's wrong with people and trying to solve problems, right? We can also look at mental health from a perspective of what's right with people. The technical term we use is the salutogenesis framework. What is right with people, and we build on what's right. Uh, both of these perspectives are important. Sometimes we need counseling, and we do see the benefit of counseling. But sometimes we also see the benefit of prevention. Can we build certain strength in us to prevent us from falling into the downward spiral, right? Or build strength in us, and should we sometimes face certain setbacks, right? We are better equipped to deal with it through counseling. So these two perspectives are important. And today we are looking, this segment, we are looking at that perspective of what's right with us and how do we build it. And when we want to look at what's right with us, right, we have to understand what is happiness, right? At the end of the day, can we measure happiness? Why and what is the problem with happiness? And this is exactly what we are going to do in the next 1 hour. Okay, thanks. We are from this social enterprise called Happiness Initiative. We do three things. We want to raise awareness that there is a science around happiness and well-being. Hence, we take the perspective of building what's right. I think there is a lot of emphasis on solving what's wrong. We have many people doing very good work solving what's wrong and trying to help us from a problem-based approach, right? But I think there is also room to look at what's right with us and build more of what's right with us. That's what we are doing here. That's what we do as an organization, trying to raise awareness around the science of happiness and well-being. And because we are working a lot with the community, we want to translate this research into practice and programs that the community can benefit from. The third is also to build a community that promote the practice of happiness and well-being. So three things: awareness, research, and community. That's what we do at Happiness Initiative. So what do we have planned out for all of us today? We plan out three things: understand what is happiness, discover why happiness can be short-lived, and also learn techniques to be happier. And many of these techniques is also in line with like a number of principles that you can find at Tzu-Chi here. Okay, good. So there are three things: understanding what is happiness, why is happiness short-lived, and learn how techniques to be happier. So at the end of this session, we do encourage all of us here to put some of these practices, some of these techniques into practice almost immediately for today. Okay, good. Now, if you have time to do that survey just now, right, that very short link there, you would be asked a number of questions. There will be two groups of questions that we are going to be asked. Happiness can be understood from two perspectives. One perspective is something that we all know. How happy are we? You know, we talk about our emotions. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not. Something happened, you know, will maybe get us very excited. Something happened may maybe push us into a very sad zone. So this is what most of us as laymen commonly know, affective happiness. In short, it's called feelings, our feelings. This is one perspective for happiness. There is also another perspective for happiness, which interests a number of researchers, economists, psychologists, and people who plan social policies. This is what we call cognitive happiness, the thinking part. We evaluate our lives, how good our lives is. Maybe if we ask you, right, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being your worst possible life and 10 being your best possible life, where do you stand now? That itself is a cognitive happiness. You try to evaluate your life. Sometimes we also ask you, how satisfied are you with your life? Yes, I'm satisfied with my life. If I were to live my life over again, I would change almost nothing. And to what degree do we agree to this statement? That is cognitive happiness, right? So just now you did the questions, and there are these two category of questions, right? And we ask you, we are more interested because affective happiness depends and it fluctuates from moment to moment. Something happened a moment ago, right? We may be happy. Something happened a moment ago, we may be sad. So it fluctuates quite a fair bit. We are very interested in the cognitive happiness. On average, how happy are we, right? The average response that I just got from one of my colleagues here is 6.5 out of 10. Let's look at the questions. Let's go to the next slide and look at the question. This is the questions on our emotions. We ask you, you know, how did you feel the past week or yesterday, right? A cluster of positive emotions and a cluster of negative emotions. We can average out how much do you feel positive emotions and how much do you feel negative emotion. This is what we call affective happiness. What we did just now was life evaluation, which is trying to measure cognitive happiness. And a number of you actually gave your responses the average. The average is 6.5 out of 10. 6.5 out of 10. This is very, very similar to our Singapore sample. Our Singapore sample is 6.377 out of 10. So that sample, right, is always released. That number is always released on the 20th of March every year, along with the World Happiness Report. So it measures how happy different countries are in the world and rank how happy we are. I'm not sure if anyone want to use the chat function and make a guess. Make a guess. How happy do you think Singaporean is? Ranking, you know, out of 153 country, right? If any one of you interested, you can use the chat function. Feel free to use the chat function. Oh, we rank 43. Okay, good. We have 43. How about anyone else? If anyone would want to make a guess, you could just make a guess. How happy do you think Singapore rank is? Maybe I wait for about a minute or so. 60, 60 out of 153. Okay, interesting, eh? Okay, we rank 80. Thanks, Nixon. We rank 80. Okay, we rank actually 31st. 31st out of 153 countries. We are not really so low, right? But yet we are not the top 10. Interestingly, when we compare ourselves to the top 10 countries, the top 10 countries are from the Nordic countries. Our Nordic countries are consistently top 10, right? Interestingly, we have almost everything the Nordic countries have, right? With, of course, some exceptions. Anything that, that money can invest in to build, to develop, we can do that. But apart from that, apart from all those things that money can buy, apart from that, there are certain factors that we are lacking. And if you're interested in what are the factors that we are lacking, we will come to that later. Okay, there are certain factors that are lacking that actually push us down to below top 10. Uh, we have good education, we have good medical infrastructure, we have good, good system governance, we have very good system, but yet beyond all that, there are still some factors that are lacking that, of course, cause us not to be ranked in the top 10. So this is what happiness is. So we have looked at two ways that we could measure happiness, right? One way is to measure emotions. Another way is to measure the way we evaluate our lives, which is cognitive happiness. Good. Now that we understand this, let's do experiment, okay? We will come up, very fun. Now this will be an experiment that we want to invite all of us to try this. Let's try this experiment. We have learned one way to measure happiness, right? Which is the Cantrell ladder on a scale of 0 to 10. Now, we are going to invite you to read 3 stories. We are coming to understand why happiness, the intricacies of happiness, right? We look at these 3 characters, John, Susan, and Alex. When you read their stories, after you read their stories, would you rate how happy they are using that scale that you have tried just now, 0 to 10? 0 is their worst possible life, and 10 is their best possible life. Okay, so there is this QR code there. If you're using a laptop, you could use your phone, scan it. If you are not using a laptop, right, we will put the link in the chat. So you just have to click on the chat. We have a very, very intimate group today. So it allows us a lot more time to talk, to have a conversation. So we don't have to wait for too long. Maybe we wait for about a minute, or maybe 2 minutes, because we have to read 3 stories, right? Okay, I'm going to give us 2 minutes. Scan, read the story of John, Susan, and Alex, and then rate how happy they are. So I have some time for a drink first, yeah? Okay, thanks. We have someone who just joined us, right? Welcome. If you just joined us, we are doing this experiment now. Use your phone or use the chat function. The link is there. Scan this QR code and rate how happy John, Susan, and Alex is using one of scale that we used just now, right? 0 being their worst possible life and 10 being their best possible life. Try to put yourself in their situation, in their shoes. Let's wait for 1 more minute, okay? We have a very intimate group today. We don't have to wait for too long. We have also put this Zoom link. This will be a very short webinar. If you think that it will benefit your friends, right, understanding what is happiness, could they do something about their happiness or their lack of happiness? Maybe you will want to share it with your friends. It's a very short webinar. You could just use the Zoom link that we put in the chat function, share with your friend. Okay, good. We will come back to this experiment very soon, right? I'm gonna ask any one of you, like everyone here, which scenario you'll be in. Okay, this is a very fun thing to think about, because now it's going to be it maybe come March, right? It's going to be bonus time, and along with bonus time, we're going to talk about salary. Okay, so I'm going to give you two scenario. Option A. So assuming, right, your boss talk to you. Okay, option A. I'm going to offer you an annual salary now, annual salary of $100,000. And all your other friends doing the same job as you will earn $250,000, 250K annual salary per year, right? Or option B, I'm going to offer you $50,000, but everyone else, all your peers doing exactly the same job as you, will earn $25,000. Okay, feel free to use the chat function. Do you choose option A or option B? Okay, so assuming now your boss talk to you, okay, we're going to offer you salary, and we are also going to tell you what all your other friends who is doing the same work as you, what they are getting. Which option would you choose? Thanks. It's a very intimate group today, right? So we don't have to wait for too long. Okay, good. Let's wait for a couple more minutes. Oh, it's quite fun, yeah. Some of you A, some of you B. Easy, A and B. Yeah. So the options are pretty simple. Okay. Okay. So thanks, Kelly, for being so authentic. Okay, thanks. Okay, good. So it's just these two options, right? Very easy. The idea is to ask you, right? You want option A or option B? You option A, you earn 100K. Everyone else doing the same job as you, 250K. Or you want option B, 50K, and everyone else doing the same job as you, 250K. Quite simple. And we do have a number of people who have chosen option B, right? This is actually a study that was done 1998. And actually, this study was done to very, very smart students. It was done in a college, and these are very, very smart students being asked this option. You want option A or you want option B? And let's look at what is the result. What was the result then? Actually, we do have over here. We have like maybe a couple of us, right? Two of us out of like maybe 5 or 6, okay, who had chosen option B. So it's about 30%, right? But in this study that was done back in 1998, we have 56%, and these are very, very smart college students being asked the question. But objectively, let's look at this objectively, right? Let's just look at you yourself. Don't look at the everyone else one. Okay, look at your own salary. Would you prefer to bring back home per year annually $50,000, or would you prefer to bring back $100,000? I think we all know objectively bringing home $100,000 per year is better. But why do we still have people who choose option B? And really because once other people salary is inside your consideration, it changes the whole dynamics. Your whole dynamics is not about how much you earn, it's how much you earn more than other people, right? And we have a number of us here who maybe you honestly you is really very authentic. You think that yes, you will choose option B. And in this study, we have 56% of the people. What actually happened here? We can show you a visual representation. If you can see the next slide here, yeah? Oh, we will come back to the visual representation in a moment's time, right? Remember that experiment, okay, you remember the experiment that we did earlier on, right? The experiment whereby we asked you, there are 3 characters there, John, Susan, and Alex, right? Let's look at what happened. You were part of the experiment. You were randomly assigned into 2 groups. um, what happened is this: John story is the same in 2 groups. John is married with 2 children, earn $35,000, earn $3,500 a month. Wife work part time and me assistant, right? So John's story is the same in 2 groups. But in group 1, what happened in group 1? In group 1, right, Alex and Susan, they are better off than John. In group 2, Alex and Susan, they are worse off than John. So what we change is John's friends, Susan and Alex. So when Susan and Alex in group one is better, when they are better off than John, right? So John seems worse off. But in group two, John seems better off because Susan and Alex, their stories are worse off than him, right? So what happened? We did not change John's story. We only changed Susan and Alex, right? So then we randomly assign you into two groups, and we wanted to find out what is John's happiness on a scale of 0 to 10. So this is the answer. This is the average. You look at group one. Given John's story should be the same, right? And this is random assignment, it means that John should have the same happiness because it's the same story. But what happened is that in group one, John is less happier, and in group two, John seems more happier, and this is significant. The difference is 1 point. 1 point difference will in the World Happiness Report is going to push us down to about 30 ranking. 30, it will make a difference of about 30 ranking. So what happened here is we did not have to change John's story. All we changed was Susan and Alex, his friends' life story. And John's happiness get affected already. John's happiness kind of dropped about 30 ranking just because, not because of his own story, but because of what happened to his friends. So now, why is happiness so short-lived, right? Why is happiness so fleeting? And the reason is because there is this psychological experience here. Because reference point. We do not look at our life as objectively as we think we are doing. We look at our life based on reference point. I'm going to show you a visual representation of what actually happened. Okay, so this is the visual representation. Which use the chat function, which white color circle seems to look bigger, right or left? Right or left? Yeah, which white circle seems to look bigger? Hmm. Yeah, it seems, right? It seems to look bigger, right? And the reason why it seems to look bigger is really not because of the white circle. It's because of all the neighboring black circles. Okay, I'm going to click and just confirm that with you, right? See, once you remove all the black circle, you realize that actually they are the same size. What actually happened is a visual representation of what happens in our mind, right? Okay, next slide, Chairman. Okay, and this is what we call reference point. We do not look at, we do not, when our happiness is not an objective experience. Our happiness is a very subjective experience, right? And this subjective experience is based on what is happening around us, who are the people around us that we take reference from. And this is what we call reference point. Do you experience reference point in your life? Feel free to use the chat function. Do you experience it? Is it something that you resonate with? Is it something that you experience it yourself? And yes, feel free to share in the chat. And if yes, right, what are ways do you think you can manage that reference point? Let's give us maybe a minute for some of us to type. Okay, feel free to use the chat function. Is reference point something that you experience it? And if so, what is your experience like? And how can you manage this reference point? Thanks. Thanks, Nixon. Don't compare. Lee, BH Lee also shared, do not compare ourselves with others. I block out toxic social media posts. Very interesting. Thanks, Kelly, for sharing that. And that makes me ungrateful about my life. Thank you so much, Kelly. Only count my blessings. Thanks, Nixon. Very, very interesting. Because now we are now coming up. We have talked about two parts of this webinar, right, the first part we talk about is what is happiness, right? Once we understand what is happiness and how do we measure happiness, we move on to the second part to talk about why our happiness is so short-lived. Why our happiness, sometimes you're happy and a moment later, we becomes unhappy. Then a number of us here have very good suggestions. How do we manage this phenomenon of reference point? Okay, I think most of us are very expert, maybe from personal experience, right? You experience it, you can, oh, thanks, Kevin, for sharing Think Positive. And with all your experiences, let me help to consolidate for all of us here. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Yeah, I will share with you three techniques that are validated, that the scientific community actually do study around it, on it. So one way is to re-experience what it was like before, right? Let's think back a moment in time, because sometimes we progress. We from a small house, from a small flat, we move to a bigger flat, and from a bigger flat, we even move to a much bigger flat. Things have changed, and if we look back how things was like in the past, we realize that wow, things have changed so much, and that will help us reset our reference point. And this is what actually happened. When we look back at how things was like before, it helped us to reset our reference point. I'm not sure how many of you noticed this picture at the bus stop. You know, there are those big, but the bus stop with that big light box poster, right, by the side. They were running. TV was running this advertisement like last year. Okay, and I was very fascinated by this, because if you see what that gentleman was doing is he's carrying night soil. Why this was something that caught my attention, because when I was living in the village in China, as part of my backpacking experience, right, I actually volunteered to collect night soil once with my host, because I went to my host. I was staying with my host, and there's no sanitary system. It was they need someone to collect night soil. Right, I volunteer. One day I volunteer. I said I want to try at least once in my life. So it was a very traumatic experience, and that experience till this day I remember. So when I saw this poster, and then I read, actually, right, in Singapore, night soil, was still something common up to the 80s. Even up to the 80s, it was still something that was common in certain parts of Singapore. And we Singaporeans have always been traveling, of course, not during this COVID period, right? But through our experience, we always, I think, every time we hear about Singaporeans during the travel, the one of a common complaint is about sanitary system. They will go to places that are less developed than ourselves, and they say, wow, the sanitary system is not as good and all that. And when we are back here, right, we have taken it for granted. It took us many, many, many years. It took us a lot of development in order to have the kind of sanitary system that we have now in Singapore. And over time, we forgot what it was like before. We took a lot of it for granted. A lot of our development in Singapore, we have all taken for granted, because we kind of moved on and our reference point shift. So this is one example that, in order for us to reset our reference point, perhaps we want to look at an image. An image may help thinking back, going to visit a place that is less developed than or may not have what we currently have now, will help us to reset our reference point to think back what it was like before. Okay, good. Our second technique that I would love to share with all of us is, a number of you shared this: avoid social media. Like what some of you were sharing, right? You kind of keep away from those social media that makes you ungrateful with your life, and avoiding social comparison is one way. And part of social comparison in our modern day world now, right? A lot of social comparison doesn't come from us comparing with our neighbors, because in our modern day world now, we don't talk so much with our neighbors. A lot of social comparison happen online, happen to what we see online, happen to what post that comes into our feed. Okay, so this is a image of what we commonly see. If this is something that you see on your feed, on your Instagram feed, having people having good restaurants, having a very nice holiday. Maybe we don't see too many nice holiday posts now because people can't really travel, right? But they could buy a lot of things online and posting, oh, these are the things that they have, these are the nice cars that they have. It does set our reference point to something very unrealistic. It may tell we or it will make us ungrateful for what we currently have now, right? And this is what I want to share with us. If you look at the next slide, what happens if we look at, I mean, sometimes we can't avoid social media posts, right? And sometimes part of our job, we need social media. What happens if we see posts that are very, very different? Things that make us treasure the little joys in our life. That would have a very different effect. And this is an example of some of the things that are very, very minor, that make us value what is life all about. What is life worth living? And there could be social media posts that are informative, that perhaps I do a shout out here, like Happiness Initiative. We have a number of our posts that we share the scientific insights, and we are not the only this social media out there that share a lot of scientific insights for us to develop greater and better mental well-being. So this is just one example, right? What happens if these are the posts that we follow? And it would have a very different effect on us, on our mental health. Okay, so how do we avoid social comparison? I'm going to share with you 3 ways to avoid social comparison. There is this technique which we call a stop technique. Every time when we start to want to compare and you catch yourself wanting to compare, right? Tell yourself stop. Sometimes it could work better with a loud clap, a loud snap of your finger, or something that kind of get your attention to stop. And always tell, and along with having that action, right, you have to tell yourself stop. Once you tell yourself stop, miraculously we stop comparing. Okay, this is one stop technique. The second technique is, this is a bit extreme, but it's something that I do. I don't totally delete my social media app, right? But I would not turn in on. I would not go to the app for some period of time. There will be some period of time. I call it a fast, a social media fast. I will just fast maybe weeks and sometimes months. I just fast and then I do not use it at all, right? And the third way is, if we really, really cannot delete our social media or take the social media fast, right? What we can do is we use it mindfully. Okay, follow the right group of, follow the right post. Use it at certain time of the day, when you are with your loved ones or things that you're doing that are important to you. Maybe you want to put this social media aside, put your phone aside. So these are the 3 ways that we could apply to avoid social comparison. Stop, delete, or limit our social media app, or use social media mindfully. Good. Now, there was this, let me look at the chat. There was this suggestion. Sherman, the next slide. There was this suggestion to tell us to kind of cultivate gratitude. This is what we are talking about, cultivating gratitude. So how does it work? When we cultivate gratitude, right, it makes us appreciate what we currently have now. And that itself also shift our focus away from comparing with people who have more than us. And this is also one way that we shift our to mitigate this reference point phenomenon, right? Okay, and how do we cultivate gratitude? I'm going to share with all of us here three simple way to cultivate gratitude. We know this. The first way is to write down things that we are grateful for on a daily or weekly basis. Sometimes in our very busy world, right, we may not have time each day to write down or to reflect. But if we really cannot do it on a daily basis, we can actually do it on a weekly basis, on a Saturday or the Sunday, right? Think about things that we are grateful for and note it down, write it down. The second method is to share, to tell a person how much you appreciate them. I understand that in a society like ours, sometimes we are very shy. It's difficult for us to share, particularly with people who are very close to us, to tell them how much we appreciate them. This is something worth trying. Try it out today. After this webinar, after this session, right? Maybe before your family dinner or during your family dinner or after your family dinner, maybe just tell the person who's important. It could be your loved ones, or it could be your children, or it could be if you are a children listening, it could be your parents. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Or if saying it out is difficult, do an act of service for them. And the act of service is also one way that you show your gratitude towards the person. The third way, this is fun. This is something very, very fun, and I would recommend all of us to try this. Get a glass jar. With a glass jar, right, you could do this as a family or as an organization, or you can even do it personally. Write down things that you're grateful for, write it in a piece of note, fold it up and put it in the jar. And if you're doing it as a family or organization, you can imagine how fun it is, right? During Christmas, during end of the year, when you want to review what happens to the year, right? Pour out all the notes inside the jar. And that itself is a very, very fun experience where everyone read and you kind of reset back, you reset your reference point almost immediately. Reading what were things that you're grateful for that you have accumulated over the year. And if you are doing it personally, right, it is also interesting for you to recap. Wow, there's just so many things that have happened throughout the whole year, and it is something that you could count your blessings, right? So this is an activity that is very, very suitable for on a personal level, family level, and also at the organization level. So any of the working adults, if you're tuning in, maybe you want to suggest it to your team to try this, right? Good. So let's recap on three ways that we can manage our reference point, right? One way to manage our reference point is to re-experience what it was like before, re-experience. The second way is to avoid social comparison, and we can avoid social comparison by using social media app mindfully. We can kind of limit or restrict or delete our social media app, and to use the stop technique. And the third, about cultivating gratitude, is very fun. We could use a jar, we could tell a person, or do an act of service for a person. And the third way is to write it down, right? We can note it down, we can write in our journal things that we're grateful for and review it. Okay, so these are the three ways to manage something that tends to fluctuate, tends to be affected. So we talk about three things today, right? The first thing is, what is happiness? Can we measure it? Yes, we can. There are two types of happiness that we can measure it. The second thing that we talk about is, what are our what is the problem with happiness? And one main problem with happiness is because we tend to take reference, we compare with other people, and that reference point has an effect on our happiness. And now I would love to end off with three things that we could do: re-experience, avoid social comparison, and cultivate gratitude. Okay, I'm going to hold this slide here for a moment. Okay, if you could use the chat function, right, would you share, after listening to all this, what is one thing that you would try? Just one thing. Okay, it's a very intimate group today, right? Thanks for such intimate group. It's so much easy for us to have a good chat. So if you could use the chat function, right, would you be able to share just one thing that you think you would do today? You can do it now also, okay? Because we're in the age of multitasking, right? You can do it now. If you want to tell someone that you how much you are grateful for them, you could do it. Thanks, Perlin, for cultivating gratitude. How would you do it? You know, if you could be the more specific we are, right, the more likely we are going to succeed. And try it and see what is the effect on your own happiness and on the happiness of your friends as well or your loved ones. Okay, if you all would share, how would you do it? Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Pauline. Being more verbal in showing appreciation. Yes, thank you. Give everyone a hug, but social distance. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah. But you can give your loved ones a hug, those who stay within the same household as you, right? Yeah. Cooking for those I love. Yes. Thanks, Pauline, for sharing that. This is a very interesting experience for myself, right? So I am not so good with words, and the way that I show love to people, to friends, right, is I cook for them. And usually when I cook for them, it's also interesting when I host people at my house, right? At my home, it's like I don't usually, I don't sit down too long to talk to them. I would just cook and then go to the kitchen and then start doing all the bringing out the next dish, prepare the dessert or do the dishes, and that's my way to just. And I'm still listening in. I enjoy listening to the conversation. I enjoy seeing the people enjoying the food, enjoying the time together, and that's my way of expressing gratitude. Thank you. Yes, creating a gratitude journal, writing down. Thank you so much, Yo, for sharing that. Okay, so wow, Pauline. Oh, thanks for the question. Okay, we will come to the question very soon. I love these questions, right? Yeah, I'm waiting for these questions to come in. Let's clear. I'm just waiting for if any one of you would still share anything that you would do immediately today after this session to help to reset your reference point, to manage your reference point. I will come to your question, okay, Pauline? Okay, good. Let's go to questions. Now, this is a very fun time. We have about 10 minutes for questions, right? Follow more happy accounts. Thanks, Kelly. Follow more happy accounts. And I will do a shout out for happinessinitiative.sg. So please follow that account as well. Share with your friends that account. And I believe that there are many, many, many more accounts. Okay, thanks for that account. So we have our Instagram there. You can follow the account. A lot of our webinars that is easily and freely accessible to public. And if you miss those webinars that shares around the science around happiness and well-being, a lot of the summary posts, a lot of the graphic recording is up on they are all up on our Instagram. So feel free to check it out. And a bit of a shout out for our Telegram channel, right? Our Telegram channel is also for you to participate in some of these experiments. So there will be a poll that's being asked for you to experience it yourself, and then followed by the scientific insights. Okay, so we just put the link there for you, right? Good. I'm going to have a Q&A now. If we can hold on to the next slide for our Q&A slides, right? Let's have 10 minutes of questions and answer. Okay. The first question that Pauline has is this, right? It is easy to start managing a reference point, but do you have some tips, strategies on how you can sustain this practice? Sustain the practice of this to manage a reference point. Yeah. Mm, I give you two. Okay. It all start with R and R. Okay. The first one is routine. The first R is routine. In order for us to sustain some of these practice, we need a routine. a routine in our work in recommending people to change habits, right? Or to adopt new habits is all about routine. You need to have a routine. If you allocated every Sunday night is a night for you to do your reflection, to write down what are things that you're grateful for. You have to keep to a routine. No, it cannot be a case that, oh, suddenly I feel like doing it, I do it, and I don't feel like doing it, I don't, I just too busy. So in our modern day world with a lot of technology, sometimes the routine can also be easily followed with with reminders that we could send. Okay, the first R is routine. That's important. The next R that I would love to offer an insight on is relationship. You need to do it together with people who have a certain relationship with you. So just imagine this, right? This scenario: you want to go to a gym. Okay, you want to go to a gym, and you find that suddenly one day you wake up, you just don't feel like, no mood to go to a gym, right? But it will be very different if you have a relationship with someone, not the romantic relationship, right? It could be the friendship kind of relationship, yeah. If you make an appointment with someone to go to a gym, you're more likely to go, because that person say, come on, we already make an appointment already, let's do it together. Every time you have someone doing that thing that you always wanted to do with you, right, the success rate will be higher. It could be anything you want to learn. You want to learn cooking, do it with someone else, right? Have a routine, doing with someone else. You want to, practice gratitude, have a routine, and if you can do it with someone else, that in on days that you don't feel like doing it, you will always have someone or more than one person who want to do it together with you, right? So that is my two R's for you: routine and relationship. Okay, I have more questions coming in. Feel free, send as many questions as possible. Okay, I really love to answer questions around happiness and well-being. Okay, ask us anything, things that we cannot answer you, we will tell you, we will direct you to certain resources, right? Good, thanks, Berlin. Thanks for showing gratitude. We really, truly appreciate it. Okay, now there's a question from Kelly. Can reference point be a close family member? Oh, enough. Yes, Kelly. Yes, totally. Totally. In our webinar, when we run this, right, we actually, we don't run this live physical setting. And because physical setting, a lot of people have, they can share uh, a lot more easier, because now I know that on a webinar, in this webinar platform, it's more difficult for people to share, right? Almost almost every time there will be people who share that our reference point could be our relatives or close family members. Yes, yes, you can. Definitely you can. And how do you manage it? Because you cannot block your family member away, right? You can't block them away, and neither can you delete them. You cannot delete them. So these are the things that you cannot do, right? And how then? One of the things that come out from participants when they share about this, and other participants also chip in to give suggestions, is um, gratitude is one way. Cultivate certain gratitude, even when you want to compare, right? And if you're comparing, one way to shift the focus from just comparing is to cultivate the gratitude. What is it in your life? What is it in your relationship within the family that you could be grateful for? It could be you're comparing, with your brother, with your siblings. Why are they being treated the way that they are being treated, and you are being treated the way you're being treated? We understand that these are issues that is common within a family, and what may possibly help, because every family is different. So I want to emphasize what may possibly help is to cultivate your gratitude for things that you have. Okay, so go back to your inner self, cultivate gratitude for things that you have. And the second thing, which we didn't share here, is the ability to let go. Sometimes because family, when we talk about family, and sometimes when we talk about comparison, right, there could be things is not as clear cut. There could be, for lack of a better word, there could be baggages that have been accumulated in the past. Then what then may help is the ability to be able to let go. So when it comes to family member, I think it's slightly more complex because it's not something that you could just avoid, something that you could just delete away, right? So this is my two suggestions. Gratitude is one. You still have to relook back, change your reference to what are things that you have, what are things that you should be grateful for within yourself. So shift the focus back to gratitude. The second one is the ability to let go, because this could be there could be possibility of past baggages. I mean, it's just a one question. I may not know the family context, but possibly there could be past baggages, and you need the ability to be able to let go. And of course, then you're going to ask, oh, what are techniques to be able to let go, right? In this webinar, letting go is a very, very big item that we talk about. We may not be able to cover it. If you were to ask, can I just, suggest something to be able to let go? One validated scientific intervention, right? For people to be able to forgive and for people to be able to let go is what they call a loving kindness meditation. Okay, you can definitely Google it online one. Loving kindness meditation. That is one technique to help people to forgive and help people to let go, right? And there is a lot of scientific research around it, how this technique is effective and how it works. So that is my recommendation. Can you try implementation intention method for this, Kelly? Okay, implementation intention, thanks. Is a bit technical. I do not know how many of us here know implementation intention. Implementation intention is a technique for goal attainment. If you have a certain goal, right, you use implementation to increase your chances of achieving that goal. So I think it's possible. So you would think you would have a goal in mind, for example, and when you have the goal in mind, right, you can say, if an obstacle happen, if you come across an obstacle, then what will you do? If your goal is to reduce that this comparison with your loved ones, and once you identify what could possibly be an obstacle, if the obstacle happens, then the solution, I think it will work. Yes. Thanks, Kelly. I hope I answered that question. Oh, Nixon asked this question. What about comparing to my yesterday self as reference point? Whether today I move a small step further. Good. Nixon, I think in this way, right, your comparison is, this is, okay, there's two types of comparison, upward comparison and downward comparison, right? Really, not all comparisons are bad, actually. There are two types of comparison. In the scientific literature, right, the technical term we call is upward comparison. You compare with people who are better than you. Then there's another comparison. You compare with people who are worse off than you, which is called downward comparison. And usually when we have a downward comparison, right, we feel better, right? Am I right? Yeah. So most of the time in social media, I give the context. In social media, it is very rare to have downward comparison, because in social media, right, everyone posts about our good things. Most of the time, we only share good things. If we experience something that we are not happy, we're unhappy about, we don't usually share it on social media. Rare. Okay, maybe some of us do, but very rare. Which is why in social media, it creates a very unrealistic world. Why is everyone better off than I am? Why am I the only one who's suffering? Actually, in social media, human beings are all connected by a very common thread. We all suffer. We all have pain. We all suffer. But yet on social media, it tend to be quite lopsided. We only share about good things. That's why the problem with social media is there's always over comparison. Why is everyone doing better than I am? I'm worse off. And that causes us to feel less happier about ourselves, less satisfied about ourselves, less contented about ourselves. But when you share this about comparing with your yesterday self and realize that you have improved, this is what we call a downward comparison. So there were not a good version of ourselves, but today we build a better version of ourselves, right? When you do that kind of comparison, does it improve our well-being? Are we happier? Yes, it does. Okay, it will. I think that itself is a positive technique. Look at how we have improved. Look at what are the things that we have done in the past, but now we are doing better, and I think that is a positive technique. Okay, so because that is what we call downward comparison. Okay, I hope I answer you, Nixon. Yes, it does help. Okay, we have time for like maybe one more question. Anyone have any question? Any more questions? Right. Feel free to use the chat function now to having learned all this, right? Okay, feel free to use the chat function right now to share anything that you think that you will do immediately after this session. Okay, after this webinar, right? This webinar ends at 4 o'clock. If you think that, oh, this is something that I will do, either you want to talk about things that will help you to be happier. You want to talk about things that can help you manage your reference point. Either how do you re-experience what it was like before. You want to build gratitude. You want to cultivate gratitude. How do you specifically do it? And how do you kind of avoid social comparison? Okay, feel free to use the chat function now. And if you type anything in the chat function, I will help you. I can actually respond in it. Let's give ourselves another 30 more seconds to see if you have a comment to make, you have a questions to ask, or you want to share if you haven't shared earlier on what is something that you can do at the end of this session. Okay, let's wait one more. Do we have any more questions? Any more comments coming in? Thanks, Berlin, for that wonderful comment. I think the idea on social media fast is wonderful. Would like to try it out for a start. Yes, to take that fast, right? Yeah. Try that out. Sometimes when we fast, our body need to acclimatize to it, right? We may not get used to it. Do understand that sometimes it's a bit of a discomfort there. Yeah, we just have to get used to the discomfort, right? Yeah. So thanks, Berlin, for that message there. Good. So, thank you for joining us for this segment. Happiness Initiative is a social enterprise. We hope to share the science and around happiness and well-being, and to promote practices and programs that people could adopt. So, feel free to join us on our Facebook and our Instagram at happinessinitiative.sg. You can also join our Telegram channel at Happiness Initiative. The links are also in the chat, and a number of the insights can be found on both our Facebook, Instagram, and our Telegram. So if you are interested to find out more, to learn a lot more about insight, and sometimes to also find out about what are some of these programs that we run for the community, right? So you can check us out on our Instagram, Facebook, and our Telegram. And I want to pass the time now back to the MC to talk about to go on to a very, very interesting panel. I will pass the time now back to the MC, and I want to thank Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center for giving us this opportunity. And thank you so much. And I hope to see you here at HYC. This is a beautiful place. And if you do drop by, also you can drop by to say hi to us as well. Okay, take care. Have a wonderful and great Sunday, and happy Chinese New Year. Bye bye, everyone. Over back to you, MC.
Thank you, Happiness Initiative. We would now like to begin the panel discussion on youth mental health. Posh, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. And we are about to initiate this panel discussion. And I'm Posh Po from Silver Ribbon Singapore. And together with me, we have wonderful people over here. And I'm also excited to hear from them. First, we have, of course, Mr. Christian Chu, and he's the pastor from Jurong Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And he has been counseling, has been a school counselor for 6 years in Anglican High. And I look forward to hear from him. And of course, we have our Prof. Li Ching from Institute of Mental Health, and he's the vice chairman of the medical board from Institute of Mental Health. And he has been a very dedicated psychiatrist and formerly immediate past president of Silver Ribbon Singapore. And next to our Prof. Li Ching, we have the smiley, always friendly Bernice Leong with us, and she's a youth worker from the Jurong Seventh-day Adventist Church as well. And she is so kind and always ready to share about her personal journey during her younger days. So, stay tuned with us, okay? And last but not least, of course, we have Renee Pereiro, and she's a social worker and a strong mental health advocate with Caregivers Alliance Limited. And of course, you get to hear from all of them, okay? So to begin, all of us have come together because we are going to discuss about youth mental health. And before even we pursue on this topic, okay, I'm keen to know, why is it so important to cover on youth mental health? Why are we here to talk about mental health? Maybe Pastor Kristen?
Yeah, I believe that it's very important to be able to have know about mental health, especially for young people, because there's just so much misunderstanding, both among those the young, as well as their parents and the population in general. I remember back in my counseling days, I've not counseled for the past couple of years, but you go back about 3 years when I was a school counselor. I remember a time there was this boy when he wanted to come and see me for counseling. But as he did so, he would run around the block where the counseling center is twice first to make sure no one sees him before he steps in. Now, he wants to get some help because of some of the issues that he's facing. But he's just so embarrassed because he's so afraid that his friends might call him crazy just for seeking mental health, because there's just so much misunderstanding about it. And so I'm actually very glad that there's this, that Tzu-Chi is doing this panel and this event today to promote mental health and Silver Ribbon and all that, because when they know better, when the parents know better, they will not be afraid to seek help when there are problems. When we are sick, we have a fever, we have a cough, we always see a doctor. But when we are facing some mental health problems or difficulties, we are so scared. Many people are so scared to seek help. So I think the more we know, the better it will always be for the young people.
Thank you, Pastor Christian. And you talk about the possible stigma about seeking help. And Prof. Li Ching, how about yourself? And you've been working and you were sharing that you have an experience of 27 years in the mental health industry. So why is youth mental health so important?
I think it's very important because some of these conditions that they face may recur in subsequent stages of their life. So it's important for them to master some skills and some techniques to be able to cope with the stress, so that the subsequent setback or subsequent obstacles, they are able to manage it. And I think like what mentioned earlier on, I always believe that the early detection and even prevention will be definitely there will be a better prognosis. And involving the family members and also the school and also the community itself is also important. That's why I think the early management of person with a mental health issues, and we're not talking about definitely mental health illnesses. And again, I also want to echo the fact that when we talk about youth, we understand that it's also up to young adults. So some of these youth may be up to 35 years old, and again, different phases of their life, they face different things. School, there may be exams, there may be transition in school life from a primary school to secondary school to JC to university, or for young adults from schooling to work. And some of them had to serve, for us guys, had to serve national service, for example, I think. So all these are things that phases in life, or they get married. I think young couple, if they don't cope well, this will going to affect their marital life in future. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Lee Ching. You talk about the challenges, the possible challenges faced by the youth, and you talk about the importance of early detection. So how about Bernice? I mean, yeah, about to share, yeah. So what do you think? I mean, in view of like the personal journey and everything, what's your view on importance?
I think firstly, something that they've already mentioned is the stigma of having mental health or seeking help for mental health. The more the awareness of it, the less the stigma there is. And the less the stigma there is better for the youths because they don't experience things such as bullying, such as ostracization as much. And secondly, also, as from the perspective of someone who has had depression and anxiety before years ago, I was actually living with the symptoms of it for quite a long time before I realized that it was something called depression or something called anxiety before I could put a name to it. And so it was a longer time before I was able to acknowledge it myself and to seek help for it. Yeah. So if it was something that were more talked about, something that were, there was more awareness of, I think people would come to realize their need for help more as well. And it'll make it easier for them to find the help that they need subsequently. Yeah.
I like your quote, there's more awareness, less stigmatizing. Yeah, so this panel discussion is really good. The more we talk about it and then with more understanding, right? Renee, wouldn't you agree with me being a strong advocate in this mental health industry?
Definitely, Posh. I think the topic of mental health in itself is a really important one, not just youth mental health, because in terms of mental health, everybody's mental health, every group's mental health impacts each other, right? So the family mental health, the adults in the home impact the youth, the wellness of the school community impacts the youth, and the youth in turn, they impact their friends, they impact their family. So I think this is a discussion that needs to be held on every level, right? In terms of why specifically youth, because as Prof. Lee said, it is that time when they are launching into life, right? And the earlier they get help, the better. And I think it also impacts their sense of well-being. If you are young and you have this major setback, it impacts the trajectory of your life. So I think that's why it's a discussion, not just for youth, but for everybody to be having at this time.
Yeah, you're very right. It's not just focusing on youth, but across all age group as well. It does happen to anyone. And in view of all this, we had discussed about the importance of youth mental health. But the thing is yeah, so it's important, but what's happening at the ground? And Prof. Lee, are you able to share? Because you have been seeing a lot of patients. So is this common among the youth right now?
Definitely, I think it's again, it may be because of the awareness, so people come to see us more willingly, although there's still a high degree of stigma. And also there's a lot of services available. In the past, they only go to maybe a psychiatrist or maybe a hospital-based. But now we are very, very happy. For example, Silver Ribbon and Tzu-Chi and all the other SSA and VWO are all willing to open up their services, and especially the community-based services, because it's less stigma, more accessible. I think that is also another reason. Yeah, I mean, effort done by all these mental health advocates over the years, over the last 20, 30 years, or even longer, has shown some results in people willing to seek help. But nevertheless, I think we have always seen reports, even our Singapore mental health study and also MENA reports, that some of the common conditions are stress-related, anxiety, Bernice mentioned about depression, and sometimes it's adjustment that we talked about earlier on, different phases in life. And for youth, or maybe younger youth, I mean, kids and whatnot, there may be things like school bully you mentioned, attention deficit, or even learning disability. I think these are things that we do see quite commonly surfacing to our services.
So you were saying that it's quite common nowadays, and especially like stress-related issues, depression, anxiety. Thank you so much for sharing. And the next question will be, what do you think? Who should be the one to educate parents on how they could support youth to enhance positive mental health? So anyone who would like to comment on this? Yeah.
Well, I don't know whether we're going in order. I don't think we are. But anyway, I could mention first. I think for me, coming from a background of school counseling, I had 2 years in Anglican High, and another 4 years in a private school, Sanyi Adventist school. I did notice there's not much difference in terms of whether it's private or public school. The parents generally, many of them don't really understand. And I feel that the schools are one of the best places to learn about mental health for a couple of reasons. For the parents. The first reason is that in the school, there's a vested interest because you want your child to do well. And so when the school calls for mental health talks, which I think many of the counselors and the schools have been doing, then parents might be more willing to come and attend because it's their child's school, and the counselor or the teachers actually know their children the best. And one of the best things about it is also it's free, because you go to all these talks in the schools, you ask the teachers, you ask the counselor questions about mental health, you get to ask as much as you like, and it's totally free of charge. So I feel that one of the best places for parents is really in the schools. Ask all the questions that you want, call up your school form teacher, ask to speak to the school counselor if you need to. If there are mental health talks being held in your school by the counselor, please go and attend, because you can really learn so much. And these are the ones that have been working with your children. They know your children, they know the issues they are facing. They will be able to give you first-hand information about how you can help your child, how to help their mental health.
Thank you, Pastor Kristen. You talk about education at the schools and how important it is. How about Prof. Lei Ching? What do you think?
I think nowadays, beyond just the parents themselves, we also need to educate the community, because a lot of times the parents were working. I mean, now some parents are working from home, but we talk about business as usual. Both parents were working, they are not at home. They may not know what the kids are doing. The kids may be in the cyberspace. They may be bullied in the cyberspace. They may be taken care by maids, or be taken care by grandparents. So I think beyond the parents themselves, I believe we need to educate the community at large. And I think this will help to pick up some of the early signs of the signs and symptoms of the kids that the kids are experiencing. Because again, those who are with them, usually with them, most time with them, will be able to detect the subtle differences. Because you get someone to notice a person who is grossly unwell, I think anyone on the street can also pick up. But I think the subtle signs and sometimes the early signs of so-called unwell may be very, very non-specific. For example, more irritable, for example, poor sleep, or maybe some behavior problem. So I think we cannot just say that let the school, the teachers be the one responsible. I think the teachers will also be very stressed. I think we all us to share some degree of burden. But I do agree that parents, through the school as a platform, is a form of getting some information.
Thank you so much. In addition to Pastor Kristen mentioning about public education or education in schools, you were talking about to reach out beyond the parents, like the grandparents, the domestic workers, and the community at large. How about Bernice? What is your view on that?
I think to add on to what Prof. Lee has just mentioned, like there are a lot of institutions right now that are already addressing many different facets of mental health and mental health caregiving. For instance, like Renee is from the Caregivers Alliance, which targets mainly the caregivers and how they can help the youths. And so I think like all these institutions, as they come and as they work together to spread awareness and to share and to support the different areas of people who are affected by mental health, not just the people who are suffering from mental health and their parents, but also like they mentioned, the community at large. And I think there is so much that can be done in that arena to support one another and just to ensure that people who are suffering from mental health have that support to keep going forward. Yeah.
You emphasize on the amount of support for persons with mental health issue. Thank you so much, Bernice. And next, Renee.
I think that's quite an interesting question to ask who should educate parents, because there are no formal educational channels for parents, right? So to ask the schools to do it, who are actually educating the children, that's quite complicated because they have their own agenda and parents are separate to that, right? And so I think largely parents are very educated by the media. That's one of the ways. Little bits by schools, because schools don't have long programs. What Bernie said is that now it's coming out into the community, and the community is taking the onus of educating everybody, right? And I think that's really important. In the work that I do, we run our 12-week education program, and that is a very holistic program to educate them about a lot of aspects of mental health. And I think that is a very concrete example of community educating. I think another thing as well, as friends and also as professionals of people who have had experiences, the onus is on us to share with our friends, right? One of the things that happened was when I started working in this field and I started talking about it, a lot of the people I knew who had previously, I've known them for 30 years, they don't say anything. And then suddenly, because you're talking about it, you've given them the avenue, So I think it's really important that all of us take this opportunity to educate each other.
Yeah, so right, exactly like what Bernice had mentioned earlier on. The more we talk about it, the less stigmatizing it could be. Before we move on to the second question, I have one more question for you, Renee, because would you agree that some parents might be hesitant to come forward to attend even so whatever events? Would you agree with that? So how could they overcome that? What is your advice to them?
So there's many reasons why they don't, right? And it's not just parents who don't come. So one of the examples I was giving earlier, as we were talking informally, was I can have a list of 60 people whose families have mental health conditions, but maybe only 20 will come, So it's a lot of different reasons why they don't come. One, it's time. Another, it's the shame of it. Sometimes when you come for something, it's an acknowledgement that something is wrong. And that's a difficult step for people to take. So I think there are varied reasons, right? One of the things that I've found is just to give people space and time and just leave the door open for them all the time.
So well said, right? Giving them space and time. So I hope that parents, take your time to think about what you really want to do, until when you're comfortable, we welcome you to come forward. Okay, next question. Then who should be the one to teach the youth about mental health this time? Back to Pastor Kristen again.
I'm first again.
You get a prize later.
I think when it comes to we use the word should, I think the youths, where they get the information versus where they should get the information is very different. If you ask young people, I think those who are watching, the number one place you're going to get your information is you open up your computer, you go to the internet and you Google and you find out what is it. So if you're in school and then your teacher or your counselor might say, I think you have depression. The first thing you do, you go home or you just whip out your phone and you go to the internet and find information, or you ask your friends. But the problem is that the internet is so full of information and misinformation. And many times your friends don't know much better than you. So who should be educating them? I feel the number one place they should be getting their mental health information, accurate ones, should be in the home from the parents. But of course, the problem is that many parents themselves are not equipped. They don't know. So as was mentioned earlier, parents should be, if you love your children, you care about them. Now with the prevalence of mental health difficulties among the young, you need to get yourself educated to understand what is depression, what is anxiety, what is ADHD and so on, to really know what it is, what is not, and then be open to your kids talking to you, you go and talk to them, have a good conversation, so that together you can you understand them and any of the mental health challenges they might be facing, and then you can really support them through it. Because the schools are with them during the day, but you're with them on the weekends, you're with them at night. You're not there, you're not teaching them and too busy to really look up. The teachers are just teaching and all that. The parents are the ones that can observe at home to get to understand them the best and to do early detection. If you understand what is depression, what's anxiety, you will know what your child is doing, and whether or not your child might be more prone to any of these mental health challenges. So I feel for the youths, talk to your parents. If you are not sure, I mean, it might seem like, why would I talk to my parents about these things? But if your parents educate themselves, you talk to them, they will be able to help you the most. And if they don't know, they can find out from places like Silver Ribbon, Tzu-Chi, or any of the other areas you can find.
Thank you, Pastor Kristen. So you're suggesting that it's helpful for parents to equip themselves with at least basic medical knowledge so that they can just monitor the mental well-being of the kids, right? Yeah. And Prof. Lee, what is your comment for this question? Who should educate the youth?
I think the kids are nowadays very well versed, as I said earlier on. They will be able to Google, they will go to Wikipedia, but as you mentioned earlier on, not all information are correct, and also not all information are localized. I mean, when we talk about kids and youth, they probably can go to the English medium. Just now you talk about the whole community. I mean, everyone talking about mental health, and the old folks, for example, who are not very highly educated, who may not speak English, then the access information, it may not be in English. And again, for some Chinese or other languages, it may not be localized information. So I think I will not deny the fact that the www give us a lot of information. The internet gives us a lot of information. But we're talking about parents, there's also some challenge, because I just give an example. Recently, I have not too long ago, I have a patient who came to see me. The patient mentioned to me is the stress from the family member, essentially from the parents, that caused the patient to be unwell. So when the parent got to hear about it, the parent got very, very offended because they felt that I've given them all the materialistic support. They go to good school, I pay for their study. Why are you blaming me for your symptoms and your behavior now? So I think parents also need to have some awareness. It's important for them to have some awareness that, they wanted all the best for their kids. They may inevitably cause some degree of stress to the kids also. So I think that's very important. I earlier mentioned that beyond the parents, the other caregivers in the family members also be educated in that sense. I think that's also very important. There are also some, sad to say, there are also some children or some youth who are very isolated, very socially withdrawn. So I think friends, peers can also give them support. And when I talk about support, I also want to emphasize that it should not be just given information. I believe listening here is very important. Listen to them first. We don't jump to conclusion and start to give advice and give solution for them, because I know kids don't listen. I have 3 kids, so I can tell you that.
I think I really agree with what Prof. Lee has said. I think only if parents are equipped can they be the source of information for their kids. So for the youth, if your parents are not equipped, then go to people who are. People who are, people like your school counselor, or if you know of an uncle or aunt who you know and you trust and you know that they know what they're talking about when it comes to mental health, seek them out. But the primary one is if parents can know, then they'll be the best place, I feel. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Kristen and Prof. Lee. And how about Denise? Do you want to add on?
I think when it comes to who can help to educate the youth on this topic, schools come to mind because they spend so much time in schools with their friends and everything. And if the school can create an environment or a situation where mental health is openly talked about, where there is no discrimination against other people who might have mental health struggles, it will create a much more open environment for students to then be able to ask questions and also to be able to seek help when they need to. Students can also become sort of a support system or an accountability for each other. When they see someone who they think might be struggling with it, they can bring it up to the teachers, to the school counselors and things like that. And that only comes with education and with awareness to help to make these schools a more open environment for them to be able to address such matters. And I think it was mentioned earlier also that now MOE has put mental health into the secondary school syllabus. I think that's a really big step forward. Yeah. And in the future, if in primary school, in secondary school, in tertiary education, if this could be a very open topic, I think it would help the students a lot.
Thank you. You talk about the responsibility of the schools, teachers, and school counselors. Yeah. And Renee, how about you?
I agree with Bernice completely. It has to come from the schools. Because firstly, then you have a formalized curriculum, so the information that they're given is concrete and sound. And it cannot be something that's just among the teachers and the counselors. It has to be in the syllabus, right? So just the way, you put it in a biology class about all other bodily functions, why not the function of the mind and the brain, right? So I think that's really, really critical. Just to echo what has been already said, parents may not be equipped. And sometimes the children grow up in environments where, for example, if everyone has depression, it looks normal, right? So when something becomes normalized, you don't recognize it. So when you have this information from outside, it's really important for the child to be seeing something from a different perspective. But not only do you need the formal education, I think you also need the informal support when people start to realize what may be going on. So I think there also needs to be that added element of support along with education. In the example that you gave about the parent being really upset, then what is the child supposed to do, right? So there needs to be more support than just education.
Yeah. So besides speaking to the parents, they can speak to the teachers or school counselors. But again, the stigma. So Bernice, how about the stigma to seek help? The stigma to approach someone to share about your personal issues. Have you ever experienced that?
I think initially there's always the fear and the stigma. And also like some people that I've talked to and spoken with, they are afraid that if they go and see a counselor or if they seek help, it's going to be in a permanent record that in the future could affect their job prospects and things like that. So I think that's one of the fears that is still very real to people when they think about, seeing a counselor or seeing a psychiatrist seeking help. As for myself, I don't remember particularly feeling a stigma at the time, but I think that might have been because, when I was going through depression and anxiety on my own, there was too much else going on in my mind at that period of time to think about the stigma of it. Yeah.
Okay, another question for you, it would be like, how could someone support their loved one with mental health issue? So what's your advice? Okay, I don't want to start from you. I'll begin with Renee then. Renee?
I think one of the most important thing is to understand illness, right? A lot of times there's a lot of fracture in the family because they don't understand the illness. They think that a lot of things are deliberate. They think that people don't want to talk to them when actually the person is, experiencing a lot of stress within themselves. So I think that is the first step, right? Secondly, to equip yourself with the skills, right? The skills of how do you communicate with somebody, who may not be quite, who may feel extremely sensitive to the things you're saying, who may have difficulty receiving messages sometimes, right? Depending what their illness is. So I think the skills, the soft skills are really, really important. And I think the final part of supporting someone would be just loving them, for them to know that you're there with them, no matter whether you understand it or whether you don't. From the work that I do, we see that the families that are, or the people with the illness who are most supported are the ones that do the best.
Being understanding and to equip with some skills basic skills. How about Bernice? What do you think?
I think it's really important for people to understand and acknowledge that, mental health illnesses are illnesses and they are diseases that very often is out of control of the person who is experiencing it or going through it. I remember when I was going through it, I had some friends who did not understand what I was going through, and they'll ask me things like, "But why don't you just choose to be happy?" And to me, I felt like, yeah, if I could choose to be happy, of course I would choose to be happy. Like, is there any reason why I would choose not to be happy? Yeah, so I think acknowledging that it is a disease is very important. And besides that, speaking from a youth perspective, like if one of their friends were going through something like that, one of the things I would encourage them to do is to be empathetic, to practice active listening, and to see this person and their condition not as a problem to be solved, but really as a journey that they're walking through together with their friend or their family member. Yeah. So it's not that, this person has this issue and this problem and we're going to have to solve it. Like, besides that, there's that whole relational aspect of walking through the experience together with the person and growing together with that person as well, because everybody's mental health journey is very different. Yeah.
Thank you, Bernice, being empathetic and being there for them and non-judgmental. Thank you, Bernice. And Prof. Lee.
I think it's important for them to, for us to emphasize on the strengths. I think a lot of time we tend to talk about our weaknesses. I think each of us have our resilience in managing our stressor in life, in overcoming obstacles. I remember, for example, when I was doing my national service, that was many years ago. Okay, I'm now ORD, or I don't need to serve reservice even. Yeah, I have a ankle accident, so it was so difficult for me to even take a public transport to camp, not to even talk about participating in the physical activities. So you need people who are supportive, you need people who are understanding, empathetic, but at the same time, I believe the individual himself or herself need to be able to garner his own strength. I recognize that he is a person who can able to train, but I do agree with what Bernice said. It's not useful, and I think it's the same that sometimes you go to a funeral wake, you don't know what to say because what can you say? You ask people to don't be sad. How can don't be sad? I mean, it's a grief. So I'd rather, as I said earlier on, I'd rather you offer a listening ear than to jump into offering an advice or a solution. But I must say that most of us tend to do that. We are very task-oriented. We are very goal-oriented. The moment you see something, we want to finish it. And we want to do it fast and get out maybe our checklist. So I think this is something we may have to get to have some self-awareness. I just also want to emphasize the fact that coming to this thing about stigmatization, a lot of people come to see a psychiatrist or mental health professional thinking that they maybe have to be on a long-term drug treatment. And I think that is not true. I want to emphasize that as a psychiatrist, it's not true for majority of cases. For minority of cases who have long-standing chronic illnesses, they have to, like just now we mentioned about like high blood pressure, diabetes, or physical illness. We do not say that why you have diabetes, you don't take medicine. So I think for majority of cases of mental health issue, they may not need to take long-term medication. So I think understanding is very important.
I think this is very important because I have met a number of parents telling me, over my dead body, I'm going to admit my son to IMH, he's going to have a record. He won't be able to get a job in future, exactly like Bernice said. So the thing is, like, your sharing is really, and to support someone with mental health issue, many a times, a lot of people thought that, oh, I'm supposed to solve the problem, what am I supposed to say, So if you don't know anything, just keep quiet, be there, they can feel your presence. Am I right, Prof. Lee?
Yeah, totally agree. I think the basic needs for the person is the most important, both physical and emotional needs. It's the same as sometimes we do disaster management, for example. We can't give in multiple solutions. In fact, sometimes the solutions are not ready at the time. And in a crisis, where do we get all the solutions ready on the time? For what they need is the physical comfort, the water, the clothing to change if they are soaked, for example, in a flood, and just a listening ear to allow them to ventilate why they are in this state. I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Lee. And finally to you.
Yeah. I think a lot has been mentioned about how we can support. So I'm going to come from a bit of a different angle. I think for some of you, you might really not know. I'm so lost. My friend has depression or anxiety, or whatever it might be. I don't know what to do. One of the things you can do is to try and get the person to get the help that they need. Now, sometimes that can be very hard because if you try to convince your friend who has depression to see a counselor, 99% of the time they'll say no. I think we all have that experience. They don't want to see. But I think some things you can do is to tell them that seeing a counselor or getting help is not something that makes you weak, but something that makes you strong. It takes so much more courage to get help for yourself than it does to just ignore the problem and hope that it goes away. So to really encourage them, say it takes so much more strength to get them help and to really be there. Maybe you can even go with them. So I'm going to go with you. I'll take the bus with you. Let's go and see the school counselor together. I can help you so much because I don't know, but I know someone who can. And then from there, go and bring them and help them and walk that journey with them to that person that really can help them.
I like the way you comment on that, focus on what you can help, rather than to create something, oh gosh, what I'm supposed to do, what you can help. Like if you have the time, accompany them. Yes, all right. Bernice, you have something to add on?
Yeah, just to add on to what Pastor Kristen has said, like for example, I'm just taking from my own life experience. Like when I was going through depression, anxiety myself, my parents were very supportive. So like, for example, at first I was quite hesitant on going to see the psychiatrist and things like that. But my mom, she would encourage me, she would drive me to my appointments, she would be with me every step of the way. And I remember also like, because I was in Polytechnic back then, so sometimes when I went to school, my mom would drive me there. And then on the way there, I would start to develop some anxiety and some feeling like I just couldn't do it that day. And she would just say, oh, okay, we'll drive there and we'll see how you feel. And then when we're there, she will check in with me, are you going to go to class? How do you feel about it today? And if I said, no, I can't do it today, she'll be very happy to just drive me home. So she was very supportive. And I think that helped a lot in just being accepted, feeling understood. And also I think for parents and friends who don't really know how to do or support practically, I think that's something that really helped me. Yeah.
I think your comment is very encouraging for parents. At times I do have parents coming forward and they feel very guilty. I feel so bad that I have a son with mental health issue. I feel that I'm not a good mom. Why my son is having this issue, and they have a lot of guilt and they're at a loss of what to do. I mean, your comment is really good, Renee.
I think one of the things I'd like to add to this is that when there are issues of safety, the parents need to be made aware of that as well, right? Whether it's safety to the person with the illness, safety to the other family members, they need to come forward. If they don't know how to manage the situation, to come forward for help so that everyone is kept safe. I think that's critical. Actually, that's the first line that everyone should know when supporting someone with a condition.
I think I could add, the risk assessment is very important. I mean, we read in the papers that the suicide rate in the kids over the last few years, I mean, still remain of concern to us and to not only to the teachers or the parents, but I think as a population itself, I think we are worried because I think they should not be choosing suicide as a form of solution to solve the problem. As I said earlier on, it's a permanent solution to solve a temporary problem. That's what I always say. So I think risk assessment is very important, and a secure environment for them temporarily during that period of time is crucial.
I think you have answered most of the questions over here, but I have a few more questions for you all. I mean, I can feel your passion to serve. I can really feel it. So the thing is, I have a few questions like related to help seeking. Like for example, Christian, you have been a school counselor for 6 years. And the thing is, I do have some parents telling me, no, I'm not going to tell the school counselor about my son's issue in case my son gets suspended. What do you think? What is your comment on this?
I think for parents who have that fear, and for students who have that fear too. What if I go to my school counselor and then it affects my academics? It affects my performance. What if my teachers don't like me? School counselors are bound by confidentiality, just like I think probably in IMH and so all counselors and psychiatrists are bound by law by confidentiality. So your counselor will not tell your teachers. The counselor will not tell the principal because they are not supposed to by law. So you can rest assured that your child is safe in the hands of the counselor. The stories will not be spread around the school. No one's supposed to know. It's the same if you're a student, don't be afraid of that. But of course, we always say this, and it's a standard, there is one exception. If there's safety issues, like if perhaps this student wants to commit suicide, you cannot expect the counselor to let you die, It's not going to happen. The counselor cares for you. So in such areas of safety, then and only then, for your own safety, will the counselor get you the help that you need. But that will never lead to suspension. That will not lead to anything negative happening to you in terms of your academics and performance at the school.
Wow,
Yeah.
very assuring, right? To all the parents, hopefully, okay, keep our finger crossed, and more parents and students coming forward to share the concern. And Prof. Lee, and being a psychiatrist, so this is another set of concern by the parents, saying that, by sending their kids to IMH or a psychiatrist, they might be placed on medication, and they worried about that, the side effects and everything. What is your comment on that?
As I mentioned earlier on, most of the psychiatric conditions do not require long-term treatment. We are talking about, for example, stress. We emphasize on stress management, relaxation technique. We are not talking about taking antidepressant for every patient. And then adjustment reaction, adjustment disorder. We had to teach them how to cope with the new environment or the new stressor. I mean, people are concerned about taking drugs, for example, for chronic mental disorder like schizophrenia. It only affects less than 1% of the population, less than 1% of the population. And even for depression itself, it's less than 10% of the population. I know they are serious conditions, and even for depression, I must emphasize the fact that for first episode, even if they're on the medication, it's usually for a certain period of time. It's not forever. It's only for those who have multiple episodes in and out of hospital, multiple episodes of suicide, suicidal attempt, that type of thing. Then they may be on a treatment for a longer period of time. The other thing is, with advancement in drugs, there are a lot of new drugs that have lesser side effects compared to older days. When I first started psychiatry in 1994, I always joke that to my junior doctors, it's easy to pass the exam because there are only a couple of drugs to remember. Now there are so many drugs to remember. The side effects, the interaction is more and more difficult. And as people get older, there are a lot of medical complications, medical conditions that we have to take into account. For example, a person who have a kidney failure, they cannot take drugs that last in the body for too long. So don't worry, we'll choose the appropriate drugs if necessary, indicated, and not all drugs will have side effects. And also other form of treatment like psychotherapy, counseling, even earlier on during lunch, we are saying that exercise for mild to moderate depression and anxiety have proven to be useful in this context, and other modality like art therapy, music therapy, and whatnot. I think there are multiple ways to help a person rather than just thinking of drugs.
So there are help available, provided at IMH and other hospitals as well, and have no concern. So I have some questions from this Q&A that is like, why are youth more vulnerable to mental health condition, Prof. Lee?
I think first and foremost, they are young, so they may not have experienced this obstacle before. So when they face something, they may not know where are the solution or where are the where to seek help. I think that's and the other thing is also youth at that time they are also earlier on we did mention that they are going through different phases in life. So this may be something new to them. We must also not everything blame on the youth. Again, I talked about earlier on, maybe marital problem, family problem. These are also stressors to the youth themselves. And lastly, I think sometimes we also talk about the society demand on youth to excel well in a competitive environment or a society. I think these all are the causes of the stress for them. So I think if you ask me, if we can divide into both internal stressor and external stressor. Internal will be things like your own expectation, your own demand. External will be things like maybe from the school, from the society, from the parents, from the family, and whatnot. So either internal or external, and then you are able then to decipher where is the main source of stress, and then you tackle it accordingly.
Thank you so much, Prof. Lee. Take a break first before I come back to you. Yeah. And Bernice, we talk about all the different types of stigma, right? Stigma about like seeking help or speaking to a school counselor or speaking to a psychiatrist. How about, I would like to invite you. How long you took before you come forward to seek help? Could you recall back then?
It was quite a number of years ago. I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was not long. I had a lot of support from the church and things like that. So I think when I first came forward, I saw a doctor, and she was the one that first mentioned the words like depression and anxiety. So from there, then I started to be a bit concerned because I realized there's a name to it, and I realized there's more to it than just myself. Yeah. So I think from there, although I was hesitant to see somebody at first, it wasn't very long until I was convinced to just try and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Partly because you have a lot of support, partly because somebody mentioned about it. Right?
Yeah. So it's like many different steps, many different factors and aspects from different people that helped me to see what it was and to help me to realize also that, I don't have to keep going on this path, that there's something else that can be done to help the situation or to help me to feel better or to improve the situation. Yeah.
This means a lot, especially the amount of social support you're receiving. I believe so. And Renee, you've been working in Caregivers Alliance Limited, and you come across so many caregivers. What are their common concerns? Any concern that they have before they come forward?
There are so many common concerns. I think one of the most difficult is the ones where they can't get their loved ones into the system for help. And for others, it's the despair of how long a situation can carry on, because a lot of people think once we get our loved ones into the, get to them help, they will be better, right? But sometimes it's not that way. So there's that despair. So a lot of it is the emotional journey. So I think those are the main things. And then there's just the day-to-day living, right, with a situation that is not ideal. So those are basically the ones.
What would your advice to someone like caregivers about like coming forward as well? They have high levels, high stress level as well. So what would your advice be to advise someone to come forward? And no concern, no worries, just come forward. What other advice would you give?
I think one of the things that I would really say to caregivers is the higher your stress, the more difficult your situation, the sadder you are, the less you should be hiding, the less you should be ashamed. There is a whole community here to support you. And as a caregiver myself, coming into that community, it may not have gotten my loved ones into the system for help and things like that, but it helped me. And it helped me be better so that I could be a better caregiver to the people around me.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Very interesting. And I have one more question. How do I help someone with a mental health problem, but who is particular about the confidentiality of our conversation regarding his mental disturbance?
These one people come to me all the time, right? And they tell me, I cannot tell you who it is.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we do is we say, educate yourself, right? As the caregiver, as the support system, because your input to that other person, right? Your knowledge is it can make all the difference, right? Even in talking to them, if there's worries about confidentiality, likelihood they are not seeking treatment, right? So it's about learning how to encourage them there, right? And letting them know that where the right places to go are, because actually a lot of people don't know where to go. And as a caregiver myself, that was one of the things that delayed the whole situation, right? And in the end, when you delay it, sometimes people change their mind and they don't want to get help. So it's really important to have timely help. So these were some of the things that I would encourage.
Thank you, Renee. Kristen, I have a question for you, rather sensitive in a way. It's about our discussion about getting help from school counselor. So over here, it's like, I disagree. I think a lot of school counselor will discuss with the school principal since they are employed by MOE. So I have a comment on that.
If that's the case, then I can't speak for all school counselors, of course. But as for me and my colleagues, we know the law and we know what is right. And we know that you have to keep it confidential. If this person has experience already, that, I told my school counselor discussed with the principal and the vice principal, and they have no choice. There's really no such policy. There's no such need, and I would say that most school counselors would not do that. Yeah, if you to say that a lot of school counselors will do that, I don't think that is a fair thing to say, because as for me and my cluster of colleagues, we don't do that. I think most would not do that. And if you've had a bad experience, I'm sorry that you had a bad experience. I think that's really unfortunate, and I hope that you have a better experience in the future.
To add on, I mean, we are working at the community, I and my colleagues as well. So we do not review all this to the ministry. Yeah, so yeah, rest assured, we are supposed to be ethical, right? We are supposed to keep it confidential.
I also want to mention something about a previous question, because just like Renee, I have many students come up to me, so and so and so and so wants to kill themselves, but I cannot tell you who it is. Right? It's very common. And then so you can't tell me who it is, so you want me to help you to help them. But how? You're not equipped to help somebody who wants to kill themselves. So this is something I often tell them. Say, can you imagine if you know your friend wants to kill themselves, and they told you don't tell anybody, and you don't tell anybody, and the person dies? How would you feel? So far in my experience in school counseling, there have been multiple cases of students who told me who their friend was, even though their friend didn't want them to. And I forcefully pulled the friend to come and see me, got a friend treatment. There's not been a single case that after this friend has recovered, that they refuse to be friends with the person who told on them. Because your friends understand. They understand that if you are worried for their life and you try and get them help, when they are recovered, they may not at the moment, but when they are recovered, they will understand. And you can go to sleep at night knowing you've saved a life. But if you do nothing and try, because you're afraid they will not like you, and your friend does commit suicide, then unfortunately that guilt will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so right, this is one of the concerns by social workers and school counselors as well. Yeah, and probably would you be able to share some of the services available in IMH to support youth?
First and foremost, there is a clinic level whereby a patient can obtain appointment to see the psychiatrist. I think, and it can be sometimes they're concerned about the medical fee is highly subsidized. The other thing that there's an outreach team that work closely with the schools. They call it a reach team. They work closely with the school to assist the school in counselor, and also those who are, for example, have school refusal and whatnot. And for you, when we talk about earlier on up to age of 35, we also have the check services, CHAT, whereby a person with mental health concern can talk to and also in person. I think all this you can go Google, you can search for it, or you go to IMH website, whereby they can talk about their concern and their worries. And we also have a 24 helpline, which is 6389-2222, whereby people can call the helpline to discuss about concern and their worries. So, and for the adult services, we also have both the clinic level as well as we have 2 clinics in Queenstown Polyclinic and Geylang Polyclinic. They are located, they are our so-called off-site clinics, so that persons who are concerned about stigma come to IMH can still see a psychiatrist in a polyclinic setting, or those who have, for example, medical condition that warrant treatment with a polyclinic can also seek treatment at the polyclinic, simultaneously having psychiatric treatment in our clinic. So these are the clinic level and the outreach level. I just want to echo something that earlier on mentioned. I did mention earlier on that condition that major mental disorder are not common, be it schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, 1%, 2% of population, or even depression. But I do understand that when the caregiver had to take care of them, it can be very, very stressful. I'm not trying to minimize it. The reason why I mentioned earlier on is just to mention to most people that a lot of psychiatric conditions are transient. That doesn't mean that they need to take medicine for life, and it's just to remove or dispel the myth associated with psychiatric condition and treatment, and not in the context of so-called minimizing some of the severe conditions that really require a lot of support from CAL and also the social worker in the community. I think that are the one, or even from the religious group. I think we are aware of that, and we work closely with all these agencies.
Thank you so much for sharing the whole list of services available in Institute of Mental Health for the youth. So, Bernice, I'll come back to you. I'll invite Renee to share about the services available in Caregivers Limited. Yeah.
So at Caregivers Alliance, we have our main program, our signature program is the 12-week Caregivers to Caregivers education program. And it is a program that runs over 12 weeks consecutively on the same day of the week. Usually it's after work hours, and it's 2.5 hours each week. And what we cover in the first half, it's about the hard skills of illness. So we talk about what are the manifestations of the illness. We do a little bit of brain science. We talk about medication. And in the second half, we do all the soft skills, right? So we talk about problem solving, communication, empathy, and how to support self-care. That's really, really important for caregivers, and how to support someone in their journey of whatever their recovery looks like. And in the final week, we graduate.
Wow, thank you so much. I have ever attended some of your events at Caregivers Alliance, and they are so happy. They feel that they are so well supported. So, Bernice, what do you think about the whole list of services? You have school counselors, you have like the whole list of services provided by IMH, and then there's support for caregivers as well. What is the comment on that?
I think that's really great. However, I think there's also a role for the family, because all these are external services that are available for support and for information, for education, which is really good and supportive for caregivers, for people who are struggling. But I think also another thing that's important is within the family itself. I work with youths, and a lot of them struggle with these things because they don't have support from the family, or because their family situation is not the healthiest. And when that happens, it's very difficult for them to know how to deal with it, because when they tell their friends are struggling with the same things, or their friends may not know how to help them. So I think it really starts at home, like healthy relationships between parents themselves, between parents and children, and between the family and the other families they are in touch with is very important too.
You stress a lot on the family support as well. I think it is extremely, you can be taking the most expensive medications, seeing the most expensive psychiatrists, getting all the expensive services, but you're living in a very stressful environment. So it stress you out as well. I have one final question, okay? Just final question again, I make sure. Is mental health problems preventable? Can be avoided? What can we do to effectively prevent them from happening to us and our loved ones? That will be, I will show you the last question.
Okay, I think this is a question that happened to write an article many years ago about prevention of mental illness. I just want to say that prevention can be divided into primary, secondary, and tertiary. Maybe a little bit cheap in this manner, but what we talk about primary prevention is before the illness even start. So the emphasis is on strengthening the person's coping skill as well as stress management, because that's where, for example, those who have highly vulnerable, be it a stressful family, or be it a family history of mental illness, or be it the person already have problem with coping. Then we talk about secondary prevention is those who are already with the illness, how we prevent the illness from deteriorating. And we just now talking about how to get them to have help, seek help and early, and also get them into treatment early. And I emphasize many times, it doesn't mean necessary that they must be on long-term treatment. And then the third thing is what we call tertiary prevention, is where they have a chronic deficit, for example, not able to function, not able to reintegration into the society. Then the tertiary prevention is where we talk about reintegration skills. For example, community support, teach them how to, for example, get a job, teach them how to communicate with people, the social skills. I think the primary, secondary, and tertiary, I think that's what I want to say. I just want to add something before you end. Just now we did mention about the services in IMH. I also want to echo that there are also services in other restructured hospital. So I think that's very important, because I know because of sometimes because accessibility near to a house, you may not want to go to IMH, which is in the northeast area. And also I also want to emphasize that there are a lot of GPs, general practitioners, family doctors, who are well trained now to manage mild to moderate psychiatric condition. I think that's very, very important, because I don't think we should tap on the tertiary services for mild to moderate cases unless they are very acutely unwell. And lastly, I just want to emphasize that if there is, for risk assessment that we talked about just now, there's a need to have acute, timely treatment, go to the A&E department of a psychiatric hospital. That is for urgent cases, not for every cases, for urgent, immediate, timely response. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Lee. Okay, before I close, just one line from each of you, your advice on mental health to the audience. Just one line on mental health. Yeah, Kristen.
I think one line is, the more you know, the better you'll be.
I think I just want to say that mental illness is something we are fearful. However, we should emphasize on mental wellness and mental health. I think that is important. We should not everything talk about illness. We also should talk about how to maintain mental wellness, enhance mental wellness.
Denise?
I think mental wellness is just as important as your physical wellness, and it can benefit everybody to seek help.
Yeah, and Renee?
I think I'd say to the audience, it's a brain disorder, it's an illness a lot of times. You need help for an illness so that you can be well for the rest of your life or your future, as well as you can be. So come forward for help.
Thank you so much. And my comment will be all of the above. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this panel discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your insights. We have now come to the end of our event. Before we go, I would like to share with you some of the upcoming events of Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Center related to youth mental wellness. 1st March 2021 is Self-Harm Awareness Day, and we will be holding a small group discussion at 6:30 p.m. 1/3 of young adults in Singapore have engaged in self-injurious behavior. The session will look at the who, what, when, and how of self-harm, including how to approach someone who self-harms. This session is the first of our series of mental health-related talks, known as Let's Talk Sessions. Let's Talk Sessions are highly interactive, and anyone who is ready to have open conversations are welcome to join us. These sessions are meant to be a place for honest discussion, to learn from each other regardless of expertise and background. Individuals who have something they want to say or share are encouraged to host Let's Talk sessions at the center. This year, you can also expect to see brown bag sessions that feature extraordinary youths who have overcome unique challenges. These 40 to 60-minute sharing sessions are held over sandwiches and drinks at our center. If you know anyone with an amazing story to share, do let us know. As aforementioned, Silver Ribbon Singapore is bringing free consultation services to Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Centre starting from this coming Tuesday, 23rd February 2021. If you or someone you know may be in need of counseling, please contact us. If you have any questions about any of our events, please feel free to drop us an email or connect with us on any of our social media platforms. Before we go offline, we would like to share more about Tzu-Chi Humanistic Youth Centre's latest exhibition, This Connect, Threading Woes. Thank you once again for joining our Youth Wellness launch. We hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Each other.
The deepest loss in my life is kind of an ongoing loss. It's not something that has happened in the past.
My deepest pain would be when I was in my teenage years. My dad and my stepmom were about to go through a divorce. When I argue with other people or like friends or even like partners, things like that, I always remain like quite level-headed. I'm quite okay with conflict management, but like with my mom, I really see like the darker sides of myself.
Every once in a while, I would think back and think about all the people that I hurt in JC. Like, what if they haven't really forgiven me?
You know, it all came to me, and there was this period of time whereby I felt like I was the shittiest person in the world, and I didn't deserve any love because of the way I treated people, especially somebody that has loved me with all her heart.
I felt angry at him for what he did to my mother. To this day, I cannot imagine the amount of shame he has and how he can still be proud to be my mom's husband.
When I was growing up, I never learned how to cry. I never learned how to be angry when I should be angry. I never learned how to speak for something that's important to me. And the only thing I know how to be is happy. But other people, even when I got nothing to be happy about.
I don't know, man. Like sometimes when I talk about these kind of things, I feel that I force myself to sound very like strong or very positive. I'm not sure, on the inside, whether I'm really believing what I say.
When I was trying to get some fresh air outside, I almost wanted to just talk to some strangers because I don't know, I just didn't know who to turn to.
Definitely not easy on the day when I saw him passing away. And the very next day I had to go back to work.
As a child, I didn't really know the concept of like death and loss and that kind of thing. So watching him deteriorate so quickly from like, I think there was the day that I was visiting him and it was the day that he actually left. Yeah, so the doctors couldn't do anything to save him. And that was it, he was gone.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever done. I've never said this out loud before. I just wanted to take a moment, one last moment to feel everything before I say goodbye. And I felt that the world has shown me so many beautiful things. The blue sky, the greeneries, the sound of the birds. I couldn't let go.
I feel you.
And that day, I rebirthed with the name Faith.